Okie dokie. So Unpatient Saint, let's get a quick discussion of basically how for adulting for adults, that thing that a lot of us young adults have kind of run face forward into, of our parents did what they could, to feed us, clothe us, roof over our heads, but we never really learned, one, how to use critical thinking for ourselves, how to for example, a lot of us don't even know how to do an oil change, right? I mean, I do, but how many people out there have no idea because they were just brought up of, well, if you don't know how to do it, just pay someone to do it.
Right.
Right? And so one of the big questions that you had asked me, I believe it was 2 days ago, was what about starting like a candle business, right? How do I go about doing something like that, right?
Right.
And so the first step we're going to do for, adulting for adulting is how do we take a small passion, right, with very low upkeep cost, where not only it can pay for itself, you can grow it in multiple different ways, be an outreach program, be it a nonprofit program, be it a donational program, or be it strictly business, right? They're not just limited when you start a business or start a passion to one aspect of where it grows. Okay. So they try to teach you in schools a very linear path on doing things. Okay. If you want a certain wage, you got to live this way. You have to work so many hours, let's say this amount of pay, also being putting yourself in debt for the education, then said only pays that set amount. So that way you're in continuous debt for 90% of your workforce. Then the last 10 to 20% will go towards your actual savings for your retirement. And then your retirement is still reduced by a major amount, unless you had like people like your parents who had not only a 401k, but they had a pension, they had um, flip IRAs, which, and I know a lot of these terms, especially to some of you, you may hear these and go, well, what are they? Right. And then later on, I'll go into more detail on what, these major details outside, like in IRA, 401k, pension, match investment, etc. Right. We'll take about an hour to actually go into what each one is. But a lot of young adults today have no idea what any of that is. They're 16 to 18 and their parents go, all right, you need to start paying rent, go get a job, go do this. You have to pay taxes. You have no idea what these taxes actually go to, how to do them. I mean, you have to fill out this form or pay someone else to do your taxes, even though the IRS already admits that they already know what your taxes are, which means it would be much more efficient for them to just send what they have. And then if there is a change in what they, report, you simply write it in.
And most jobs
But
require
again, they do it.
experience.
Right, exactly. So, how do we take something as small as, say, like what you said, a candle business, right? And we grow it. How do we turn something as simple as a hobby, right, and turn it into something that's both beneficial to a community and profitable, right? Because you can be easily win this game system if you want to be a sleaze bag, and if that's what you want to do, that's on you. I mean, take the information that I teach you and do what you will with it. But if you have a bit more of a stronger moral compass of where right and wrong to you really lies, there are ways that you can be beneficial to not only your environment but to your customers. You are doing more than just giving them a product for exchange of currency, right?
Right.
So let's take candles, right? Well, there's three communities that I can tell you right now that you're going to make a killing off of if you know how to market, right? And that's going to be enough. Candles, you've got witch talk, right? All those pagan heathens. Rah, 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 rah. No, I love them all. I'm a scientific spiritualist, by the way, so it doesn't matter what religion or lack thereof you have. This is a completely safe Discord, so there's no judgment here. Do you? Anyways, you have witch talk, right? You have Christians and especially Catholics, right? Which you could just do basic, Jesus or Catholic uh, merchandise. Their sellings for it, right? And you can do custom orders. You can do uh, sets to where it's like I said, you get specific molds, right? And then, so as you can hear already, I've just on simple thought given you two major sets of customers that you know are going to already be there. You don't even have to entice them. You literally just put out the product, and there's going to be someone on one of those people that are going to become regular customers of yours, right? So now you're going to sit back and set what your price is going to be, right? So you do have to understand how taxes work, right? Take a couple hours over the next couple weeks, learn your current states and federal tax codes would apply to you, okay? You're going to want to get a thing called an LLC. Now, the cool thing about this LLC is you're also, because it's a first major business, your tax breaks can literally write off your food, clothing, gas for driving, etc., all on taxes spent on or investing back in your business, right? These are all tax credits that you'll learn, which again, I'll go over later. So I've established two huge sides of, customers that you're going to have. I've established how you're going to do it and at the ease you're going to do it, right? And then I touched on how you're going to market it. Well, for example, things like TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, even MySpace. Yes, MySpace is still a thing. I actually still check on my account every 6 months. It's still there. Which these things, right, can be used very easily to market your product. You could do a couple castings for like Christian talk, couple castings of different colors and forms that you do for witch talk. You could get a hold of, a religion is an amazing thing to target when it comes to economics. No joke.
Right, but you also have to consider the fact that that's not just one of the things. You also have just people who are looking for decorations, or there's always
Right.
things like the Salvation Army who's looking for candles for emergencies, like a major power outage that they can buy a ton of and then pass them out to people whose power is out.
But you could build safety candles, right?
Right,
That aren't fire hazards. You can now let's talk about waste, right? All products have waste. How can we reduce right off the get-go our waste production, right? Our footprint on the environment. Well, when it comes to waxing and candles and stuff like that, you can do multicolored. You can do gift candles. You can do mix matching in the scents that you have, right?
right. All the wax can be put into another candle, and then in effect, you're reducing most of your waste. Now, there's still going to be some, but that's why
Right.
I would only look into biodegradable things of the stuff that you cannot prevent that waste in.
Right. So now we got to look at three steps in the process of doing this, right? Before you start your business, you take the time and you research how much a product's going to cost. Here's the thing. You got to stop thinking that you're working for a wage, okay? You're not making $10 an hour or $20 an hour or $50 an hour, right? That smartphone that's $1,000, if you make say $100 a day, that's 10 8 hours of your life, 80 hours that you've just spent on the phone. You traded lifetime for an object. When you stop looking at it as I'm working for money, so that way I can buy this thing, and you start looking at the time end, does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just like uh, an interview I was called for a while back. They wanted me to work 80 hours a week to make so much a year, but what they don't tell you is they don't pay for mileage, they don't pay for this stuff. So all that time, that hour and a half drive there, hour and a half drive back, that's 3 hours a day. And then you times that by 7, and that's how many hours of my life per week I'm putting into someone else for free.
Like, so you can take these times when you're at home, right? And so you've researched. So how much research have you done on this project since I sent you on it?
I've done uh, uh I haven't done a ton of research, but I've done enough to know that um the basics of what I would need to start a business. The items I would need, the raw materials, the average cost to start a candle making business, that kind of stuff.
Okay, sweet. So give me some of the points that you discovered that, because when you first came to me, the only thing that you had in your mind was the basic equipment that you needed to make it, the kind of wax you were getting. That was about it. So, and then through our conversation, I know you developed, okay, the waste aspect, and then the um, basic cost with the product it would come out to produce the product, right? Since your research since then, what are some other questions that were arise to you, and how did you solve them?
One of the questions definitely was, um, like I said, with the product waste, um, like the digital scales. I know I'm going to need one eventually, but do I need one for my startup?
Right. So
And
did you go into this at first thinking that this is going to be a quick sell business, or are you going into this business as it's a business you're going to build but could also possibly flop? Not that could on not necessarily flop, but flip, excuse me. So basically what a lot of entrepreneurs would do, and this is a great thing to start out if you're young, so if you're in the age of 18 to 20 range, this is a very important one you want to listen to. Most businesses are built and bought within their first 2 years,
right,
right? So say you get a selling point to where your profits are on average 20 to 30,000, right? Within your first year to 2 years, which is very easy to do. It takes a little bit of work, but so long as you're on it, it's very easy to do. Especially if you do all your own outsourcing, right? You're the one that brings the packages to, so you cut out the middleman of transportation. You only have to pay for the shipping, which can be arranged through online sales. Like as you get into it, you're going to understand that there are more things you have to study for each bridge you make for income from this job. So kind of like you have to have multiple bridges of income for you as a person, your forms of income should also have multiple bridge. So think of it of building like the synapse of a brain, right? You want them at some point all interconnected. So even if there's a fail point at one point, the other point adjusts for it, right?
right,
So, like you said with the scale, it's something that you'll probably need eventually when you really start, you know, making more than say 10 or 20 candles a month. You've jumped up to 100 to 300, right? At this point, a lot more money's moving, a lot more, points of the system are bouncing from account to account. You're getting almost to the point to, you could really really use someone you could hire at this point, right?
right,
That's at the point where most businesses are bought. right? Another person would be like, you know what, instead of investing, how about I buy your company and relieve you of only 20 shares, right? Take that. Well, now that you have 20 shares into that company, any profits it makes, you're going to make with it, right? But you've also been bought out between, 80 to 150,000 for a business. You've only sunk in maybe $300-400
Right.
out of pocket. That's it, right? So as you're doing this, once you get your feet wet in the first one, and year two comes around, do 2 or 3 at the same time,
Mhm.
right? Then within that 2 years, you make it a little harder to be bought, right? Because especially if that other one that you built is really taken off, right? That person who bought that is going to want to buy more of your businesses. On that next round, you're going to negotiate, no, we'll 50-50 it. And then you sell off the other two like you did the first one. Then the next couple businesses you make, you already got that synapse of 3 different other business owners who also own different businesses. And then you start collaborating together, and that's where, companies like Sprint, Verizon, AT&T come up, where they become too big to fail. That's the economic term, that they become a source that is so needed in society, cell phone use, they're too big to fail. And if one does fail, is simply absorbed or bought out, or they merge. They use the word merge. All these big companies are all owned by the same people. They just change hands every so many years for tax breaks. That's why companies like Amazon, airlines, etc., all paid nothing in their 2018 and 2019 taxes. Nothing. They literally paid zero. Multi-billion-dollar companies paid zero into the federal tax.
Right.
And they asked, well, how can they do that legally? Well, it's super easy. You design an offshore company that's attributed to an offshore bank, and you charge your company by that company, or basically over your finances, right? And as that happens, that money is now exempted because a purchase towards business is now just re-entered and paid by your business that is your business. And I know that sounds like really tongue twisting and weird to think about it, but that's literally how they work it.
It's a legal version of a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, basically. But it's not just a pyramid scheme, it's a pyramid scheme in which all the players are the same players and they just move the same money around. It never
Exactly.
so that's where the whole trickle down economy doesn't actually work, because that money isn't actually being circulated.
It's
It's just
being
trading the same hands.
it's being pushed between two different people to make sure it stays between those two people.
Right. The entire time. It's the same construct of diamonds, right? Diamonds are one of the most common stones on the planet. And yet, because just a couple people got the ownership of them, they were able to, for literally over 100 years, create a monopoly on something that to this day, I could go out in most states and just pick up. They now sell for, 10, 30,000.
And even people will use blood, sweat, and tears to try and get these things that they don't realize could even possibly be in just someone's backyard.
Right. Right. And they designed it for generations to come through media, news, constant wars. Like I'm going to tell you right now, you talk to most veterans, and 90% of them will tell you that flat out, the wars that we go to, it has nothing to do with freedoms. It has everything to do with greed and how can we make the elitists own everything, which they already do. If you look at it, 98% of the entire planet is owned by the same families.
Yep.
I mean, I get called a conspiracy theorist for that all the time, until I tell them, I'm like, hey, just research it. Just look it up. Don't take my word for it. Don't. I mean, because if I'm wrong, tell me.
I mean,
Every
Walmart
single time they come back.
Walmart, they're a perfect example of that. They literally built a business off of purchasing things for people to buy and then taking those things and making their own version of it. They don't change anything about that product. They just make their own version, take a couple
To
dollars
sell it for
off,
less.
and go, hey, it's cheaper. But instead of having to pay those companies, that money stays with them.
That's that whole, they buy any competition that starts rising, they buy a piece of it within that first to 2 years.
Yep.
That's exactly the role that I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, and then here's another thing. Eventually, when it comes to your business, do not put all your money in the country's currency that you live in. Divide it through cryptocurrency, which is becoming big and will probably become permanent in the next 5 to 10 years. That's not even a joke. They have already done their best so far to get rid of, physical money. I
So
mean, you've
I
seen it, where there are times we've gone up to the store and they will say, "Hey, we don't have change," or not have change,
right.
especially a Walmart.
It's just insane because it's so easy. Like coinage is some of the easiest things to get your hands on and like it's everywhere. So why don't these
And then out of
companies have it?
nowhere, just before the pandemic hit across the world,
There's a huge
boom,
shortage.
right. Like I said, so let's add this to the business, right? So my suggestion for you for your next steps of your business, right, is finalize the exact amount on what your prime experience for doing your job would be. Okay. So if you were to get a scale, if you were to get everything else you need, right, and then add a 1 week's amount of work that you want to put in. So say you put in 2 hours a day a week, so 14 hours a week, right? No days off, just every single day. It just becomes part of your habit. 2 hours out of the day, you decide to do this as work, right? Even if that be that one day, all it is transporting all your things that you put on your site. That's another thing, is build a website, right? Even if that website is you have an email for orders, right?
Right.
Set it up that way. Yeah, I mean, you can go all the way back to the Stone Age of computing if you want to, if you have no understanding of it, and you can still get this done. Now, yes, it may take a little bit extra time as you learn more and more about, the computer systems, how the internet works, how another thing, how the psychology of the customers that you're going to have, how to deal with returns and bad reviews, etc., which will all down over time. This gives you the chance that, like I said, you can take something as simple as a hobby, such as making candles, and turn it into a lucrative source of income during time that you normally do nothing. It's that simple.
Right.
And I really hope that at this point I was really able to drive home the part of, at this point, there's nothing to really be afraid of so long as you do your research, even if it completely flopped. One, you enjoyed your time doing it as a hobby to begin with, right?
Right.
So, I mean, at worst case, you spent some money on yourself for something that was worth living with.
Exactly.
Cool, right? But that's at the absolute no one is ever interested. I guarantee at the bare minimum, someone in a family or, friend of a family, etc., is going to go, "Oh, I would love to do that. How much is that? $20? Yeah, sure, no problem." Boom. Like, I hate to say it this way, but people need to start thinking like crackheads do. They don't wake up and go, "Oh, I might find some crack today." No, they wake up and they go, I'm gonna get that crack today," and they get that crack.
Mhm.
Like, I know that's a horrible analogy, but like seriously, think about it. Look at the drive. If you put the same amount of drive into something you truly want, it will happen. It may take time. It may take, major adaptation of your psyche and how you interact with people,
Right.
but
And
it is
this
absolutely attainable.
and like you said, it could flop, but in the meantime, you found another thing that you learned about this business that can lead to something else that you may enjoy doing. And
Right.
that may,
Well, let's take Elon Musk, right? You know, the whole he sent his car into space. That all started because he got bored one day and decided to start selling T-shirts. And then from the sales of the plain T-shirts, he bought and then resold fire extinguishers. And then when he got bored with the fire extinguishers, he built flamethrowers, literal flamethrowers. And then once he sold out of those, he used that money to build a rocket to send his car into space.
right. But it all started with a t-shirt.
It all started because he was bored one day. He didn't even sink any money into it. Like he clearly stated in his interview, he goes, I literally spent zero money. I joined a site, I did some this, they did most of the work for this. I then popped it from that site to Amazon, eBay, and Facebook, and I let it utilize itself. And within 2 months, I just switched it.
Yeah.
And if you have ADHD, like this is an absolute reason why I try to tell people who have it, yes, it is hard to concentrate, but if you can master it and use it as a tool, it will put you ahead of the game
Oh yeah, for sure.
because you're not constrained to the, you know,
Linear
forced
thinking,
ideology that right.
you can you can come up with so much creativeness that it's insane that nobody else would have thought of, because while everybody's brain is unique, yours is especially unique.
Mhm. That's why they immediately started drugging people like that hard and giving, all this extra funding to schools who had kids who were on these drugs, etc. If you can keep a population, especially a large population like America or Europe, etc., and you keep them, say, 80 to 100 years behind technologically and socially, and a few, you keep them dumb, you keep them low IQ'd, and you keep them poisoned. I mean, just all you have to do is go to your state's water testing and look at what they have in your water.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say about that. Like, that's it. Just that point. One of these days, just take that look. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's horrible. It's a horrible game, but you can easily play the game without even being in it. And that's another aspect that I'm really going to start covering on this series of Adulting for Adults because it's got to the point to where most of us citizens are going to have to, in a sense, have to create our own little communities. We're going to have to. And until we can get the cancer of our government taken care of, we're going to have to get to that point to where our financial stuff is taken care of and we can put our focus elsewhere.
Right.
So, but yeah, at this point, let's go ahead and jump into Q&A. Zool, if you had some questions on it, feel free to either jump on the call, like activate your voice, or type it out, and I'll see if I can answer. If you can just type it out, I will have Zenix, if you're still here, go ahead and join the call. If not, go ahead and type and let me know. And if it's still just though you two can only type, if Emily or Daniel Hess or Tamatsu would like to, go ahead and cue in the chat first, and then we'll bring you up on call
Well, here's my first question.
for it.
When you are looking into an LLC, is there a specific type of LLC that you should
Well,
avoid?
I would recommend when you first start doing it, just look up your local LLC conditions. You can get them for anywhere for like $8 to $15. You just go down, you get the paperwork, and you fill it out. It really is super simple. But if it is something that you really want to make sure that you do it, cue in the text, and I will over the next couple days post some YouTube videos that cover it on the page, so that way you guys can access it and walk through it. But
Okay.
no, I wouldn't really worry when you start making into the like tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars, because until then you're not making a lot. You're not really making enough to where, or dealing with enough people to have to worry much about like a legal side of stuff, right? That has alternate protections. You have assignment agreement that when they enter your store or do purchases, that these are the terms and conditions. Blah blah blah. I mean, eventually you'll want to do that within a couple months or so. But again, if you guys want to start this business and going, get the basics done first, and then when those areas arise, I will post the videos or do an episode on it with the Q&A.
All right.
That answer your question good enough on that, or is it something that you need me to go in a bit more detail?
That answered my question. My next question is what are some red flags of people who want to donate into your business? What should you be worried about there?
Well, that's you just keep that communication straightforward and contracts, right? That this is donation, not
Purchase.
purchase of so much company, right? So, because especially the bigger, big wigs will offer that. They'll send their little lawyers, like, yeah, we would like to make a donation upon this contract, and they'll hit you with this big number of like $100,000, right? And to them, that's like wiping their ass cheeks.
Right,
No
but then
joke.
they have creative
Sorry.
control over your company.
Right. So, you do everything in paperwork, and then if they bring paperwork with it, because say it's just some pop shop that comes over and goes, hey, I really like that you're outreaching for, kids with disabilities. I would like to donate, $100,000, right? You can then sit down and go, okay, so how about we do this, and I'll let you have full control of how the money is going into this program. Right? You can take that step into that, and that's how you still have somewhat control. Right? But if it's a donation, that's you want it to go to as much as where that donator wants it to go anyways, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're just pocketing it, then it's not really being donated for the cause. It's just basically like free money. So you got to ask yourself that too. When it is approached, are you welcoming it as such, as a donation for an outreach or a donation to help boost your business? Because let's see, quite honestly, I have no work experience. Only had the career. Did I end real quick? Did I answer that real quick for you, Emily?
Yeah.
Enough. Okay, so Azul just posted. I don't know whether you're male or female, so there, I'll just go with that one. There, quite honestly, I have no work experience. Only had the career prep from high school and the Yes program from GED. So I have little to no knowledge of things being said. So thus far, no questions yet. Yes, I can understand that a lot of the things I'm talking about may seem extremely advanced. Okay, I myself was exposed to learning this. I literally did all the budgeting of my home at the time when I was 8 years old. Female though doesn't matter to me. Well, I mean, I just don't, wanted to offend in any way. I mean, I'm still learning the whole pronoun thing. I have a hard enough time remembering names, but I mean, I'm getting there. So, but let me readdress, what's going on. So, I will definitely take time over these next couple days, not only posting little videos that you can watch, and then when you have questions from those, you can ask those. But I will do my best on our next Q&A and yes, we'll just say Discord meeting, to really go in more details on why and what means. Now, what I mean by that is, with your basic information, one, you're dealing with the well, you need this much experience, and you go, where can I get this experience? And they tell you, well, you got to get a job in this area to get that experience, but you can't get hired because you don't have the experience. It's a stupid cycle.
My favorite
Okay.
quote that I have ever
Second,
heard is they want an 18-year-old for the job with 20 years of experience.
or like the IT job that I applied for, where the iOS software that came out was literally 3 months old, and they wanted 4 years of experience on it.
Right.
So it it can get crazy like that. So not only you got to deal with that, but again, not every place is manufacturing area. There are some areas that it's only commercial. There's some areas where it's only farming. There's some areas where it's, you know, television or radio. There's, each place is not, a focus for factories, right? That's how they designed the school system throughout America, especially during World War II. Which that's a whole nother history lesson that I'll cover later. But yeah, so you got to understand that, yeah, I know it seems like a lot, but the fact that you've taken the initiative to learn it puts you ahead of a lot of other people your age. Okay. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm 29 going on 30, and there all the time I get, dude, you sound like you're, 40 or 50. Well,
or
it's
you
because
are
I had to learn all for it.
or that you're a lawyer or something like that.
Yeah, simply because I studied the law. Right. Which is another thing that I'll be doing, some episodes on, etc. Because you're expected to be this perfect citizen, and most citizens, even though they have almost no knowledge of the law, still know more about the law than those who are, paid to uphold it. Not in all areas, because like when I was talking to the officer in who ex officer in Colorado, I mean they have a lot of great programs and a lot of things that they're definitely doing right in that area. But so back to the business quotes and learning this stuff, what I would recommend is if you have access to a computer, Azul, start practicing your Word documents, your word writing, your get used to punctuation and stuff like that, and then download a simple resume app, right? You may not have any work experience, but you have a lot of experience. Okay. It could be experience in computers. It can be experience in app navigation. It could be experience in artistic things. You could be someone who wants to become a singer, right? So when you're on TikTok or you're on the computer on YouTube and stuff like that, realize that the human species are performers. Okay? You obviously need other people. We're a very social species and we're a very performative species. I mean, we laugh at other animals for doing mating dances, but I mean, they're not the ones spending a full week's check to, go out to eat for a relationship that may not last more than a night, right? So, I mean, who's the dramatic ones here? I'm going to go with the humans. But um, just start paying attention to that. See how what you have learned in your life can be applied. It could be something as simple as you make a YouTube video, right? So, like, I'm doing adulting for adults. You could take the time and say, hey, while I'm learning this, I'm going to give this to all the 16 to 17-year-olds and go, hey, did you know that you could open up a credit union account so that way you could start building interest and a better credit score before you even turn 18? You could, as a young adult yourself, go, hey mom, or dad, I want to take initiative in really building my life. How would you feel about adding me onto the credit card but never give me access to it? I'm perfectly okay with that, so long as there are people that you trust that already have good standing in the card. Again, don't do it with parents that are, living paycheck to paycheck, et cetera, et cetera. But if you are part of a family that doesn't, that is decently well off, right? Have that conversation with them, right? Because it's better to get that jump start before you need to take out that loan, etc. Especially since 90% of the whole, social economic construct is everyone's in debt. The object, though, is to be able to start out the business and exit the business without ever going in debt. So I hope that that answered your questions a little bit more, Azul. And like I said, I'll do my best to go more in detail when you can come to me with specific questions. That makes it a bit easier for me to be able to cover it. So, what about you, M? Did that cover it for the most part?
Yeah, that basically covered anything that I really had to ask about.
Okay. Um, what about you, Daniel Hess? Was there anything specific that caught your attention? Any questions that you may have?
Make sure to unmute yourself so that you can be heard or type.
He's typing.
Okay, while he's typing, I just wanted to say that this kind of thing has really helped, like, learn, come out of my shell because I had major anxiety. I have major anxiety about trying new things, learning new things. So this adulting for adults definitely is helping me get out of my shell, really.
I'm glad it is. Like, have you, since you started actually doing the research and you had the encouragement that you could do the research, and handle the information that you needed, has that brought you, I guess, a more reality check of the amount of control and influence you can have into your reality
Oh
as
yeah,
opposed to before?
definitely. Most definitely.
How would you describe, okay, before you started working on this, how would you describe your mindset of how your observation of life was and how it changed?
Before it was, if it's a possibility that it's not going to work, why do it even to start with?
So you had a
That,
very negative outlook.
oh yeah, for sure. And this is definitely teaching me that you can take those chances. Even if they're going to fail, you're still not failing because you learned something.
I completely hear that. All right, I'm going to answer your question shortly here, Daniel Hess. So let me do the last bit of follow up with Emily here. Well, yeah, and another thing is I hope that through this, application and journey, that you also discovered that point where the dogma of not only if there's a possibility to fail, why try it, but the complete understanding of acceptance that not only is it okay to fail, but you're going to fail. There are just going to be things that just don't take off, right? And that's okay. And it may just be it doesn't take off now, but 10 years from now, it does because you needed other things to fall in place first, right? So the whole human consciousness experience is simply that it's observing what your actions create in the reality around you or lack of actions, right?
Right.
So I really hope that on this journey with this adulting to adult, that's the major thing that you find is the acceptance of, look, ever since a kid, and it will be till the day I die, everything I try not only has the possibility to fail, but will fail in some way, shape, or form. And that's okay. That's part of growth.
Yep.
That's my hope. All right, so now I'm going to address Daniel Hess 24 here. I just heard about the whole ADHD thing, and I was just confused about the whole medication portion because my doctor had prescribed me the highest dosage basically right off the get go. Yes, okay, so this isn't a dogmation on your doctor. However, one of the biggest things that they train you on the last year or two for your doctorates is the marketing aspect. Now, the marketing aspect is I get so much funding for so many patients that I have that have this. And there have been thousands of cases in which they've given non people of this disability the medication for this disability, and the reaction to that medication was said disability. However, that wasn't always the case or the majority of the case. I do have great, hope and faith that at least for the longest time, most doctors held to their, code and affidavit to, I forgot what it's called, the medical something.
Do no harm.
Anyways, yeah, they do no harm. Um, but a lot of things that also ties into like the school thing that I talked about earlier. Where not only does extra funding come into it, but also, well, during this stage, well, you have this diagnosis, so I'm gonna hit you with the strongest and kind of backpedal you instead of the micro dosing that, for example, which I'll teach in another episode about ancient history and their understanding of not only things at the quantum level, but medicinal, biological, astrological, etc. So, I mean, they had roads that still last today. Yeah, our roads need to be patched up every year. That should tell you something. So kind of look at that with your ADHD, right? Your ADHD wasn't that you couldn't concentrate. It was just you just saw no meaning in concentrating on one thing at once. You were you were mentally more advanced than those around you. And so since you weren't the major, you were the next evolutionary curve, right? You were the mutants of your comic book, right? And so what does the major population that hasn't experienced this mutation do? Well, instead of looking at it as going, hey, we can learn from them and they can benefit us even more, right? They're afraid of it. And so what do? They poison it. They turn it into just as much robotic crap as everyone else. So in no way am I saying, hey, don't take your meds. At least have that talk with your doctor. Go, look, all right, this is what I am. What are some non-medicinal ways that I can learn to control this, right? I don't want it just, it obviously can't be cured, right? So what are some active ways that I can control it so that way my body can be less dependent on this mineral? It's that simple as the conversation, right? And a good doctor will either give you good examples or they will give you information on where to find good examples. A doctor who's in it just for the paycheck will look at you and go, oh, no, I mean, if you're feeling that bad, let me see if I can order you some depressive medication. You're just depressed.
Right. And it's like the doctors that only prescribe brand name when the generic will work just as well.
Right. Or so will chewing on mint, smoking a blunt, or using CBD oils,
Hmm.
or, there's a reason why the ancients and even the more recent, tribal civilizations were so damn healthy. Most of them lived between 130 to 200 years. We can actually prove this. The average lifespan of what lives in, a city area is around 60 to 70. What's that tell you?
Tells
So
you a
again,
lot.
like with this, it does. And the first thing people who, don't want to think about it because they feel like there's already too much on their plate will go, conspiracy theory, you're crazy, you're of the devil. That's my usual response is I'm the devil, false prophet, just that. You know, you know how people get when you challenge anything that they hold to must be their reality because if you break them out of it, they just don't know what to do. Instead of just taking a moment, breathing, going, look, still alive. It's not the end of the world, right?
Right.
I can make a progressive stance and situation in any event in my life. I just have to be able to register it. It's like my favorite saying, you don't have to be the smartest one in the room. You have to at least be smart enough to listen to the ones who are.
Exactly.
And never, ever be afraid to ask questions.
You
Uh,
always should follow your gut.
So
If you feel like something's wrong, say it.
at least question it.
Yeah.
Shoot. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode, third episode for No BS, but the first episode of the series called Adulting for Adults. So I hope you all enjoyed. I'm gonna go ahead and end this Q&A with the whichever religion you may believe in, whichever deity is your patron or your messiah. May they grant you peace, love, and serenity. And if that's not your kind of thing, may the odds forever be in your favor.